make the introduction. Today we have ACO Kate Hall and English coordinator Marcela Hidalgo talking about leveraging public and private partnerships to support English language learning. When I visited, I think it was Chile, I think Santiago might have been my first or second visit out from Post when I first came to Lima. And they had partnerships with several different, entities that were absolutely wonderful. We were talking about them possibly being access programs, and they weren't exactly access, but they were still really good. So hopefully they'll be able to give us some information if you're interested in doing the same kind of work at Post. And they have said to go ahead and ask questions as they go along. So feel free, if you have a question about a particular thing that they're speaking about, feel free to stop them and ask your question. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kate and Marcela.
First, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Kate, do you want to introduce, or I'll just start?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kate Hall, for those of you who I haven't met yet. I work with Marcela on English here in Santiago, and we are very pleased to be able to participate in these really wonderful, edifying experiences with the RELO team in Peru and with our colleagues across the region. So we have a bit of a background on the PPPs that we've done here at Post. We have a case study so you can see how it came together step by step, and some general tips and best practices that we've developed throughout our few years of doing this. And I'll turn it over to Marcela, but like I said, ask questions and we're happy to chat more at the end, or to talk offline if you have specific questions. But hopefully you find this useful, and we look forward to seeing this PPP model throughout the region. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to see you all. So as Kate said, we will be talking about public-private partnerships using the English Access Model. So to start, we would like to read with you. Let's read together. What is a public-private partnership using the English Access Model? So this is a general description that will help you understand a bit more about what we've been doing. So a PPP, as we call them, using the Access Model, is a collaboration between a company, foundation, NGO, or private sector partner and an educational institution to offer free intensive English instruction following the Access Micro Scholarship model for youth in underserved communities. So the embassy then facilitates these partnerships by matching educational host institutions with US companies, Chilean foundations, and other organizations willing to fund English access-like programs. The educational institutions design and implement the program based on the English Access Model. So I just wanted to read this to you so that, because it's a lot of text, and I wanted to have it very clear. So do you have any questions about this definition or any comments? No? So, okay, we can move on and show you these beautiful pictures of important events with our PPPs. Both are launch events. This one is with Amazon Web Services and a university in Chile. And over here, there is a picture of an inauguration ceremony where our former ambassador was present. So this is a list of our partners. So as you can see, we have 5 so far. We have a foundation, 2 universities, a municipality, and a mining company. So we specify the number of students and the estimated funds that were invested in each partnership. You can see here that, for example, Pontificia Universidad Católica de Valparaíso partnered with AT&T. Universidad Tecnológica de Chile partnered with Amazon Web Services. A municipality in the south of Chile partnered with Binational Center in Concepción. And Albemarle, a mining company, partnered with Universidad Católica del Norte. So very interesting joint initiatives. So we would like to take you through the process of creating or initiating a PPP. So there's always a preliminary phase when the embassy identifies or receives requests from companies in the private sector that are interested in giving back to the community through educational projects and or to contributing to developing a future workforce in Chile. In our case, we have done both. We have both identified and received requests. So it's been very interesting. And then there is the contact, the second phase, when the public affairs section provides the interested institution with a concept paper that presents the Access program as a way to develop a solid basis in the English language and other skills. We wanted to share this concept paper with you, but for some reason, we cannot share it here, but if you're interested, we can send it to you by email later on. So after the institution receives this concept paper, we usually get together again and we give these funding companies recommendations on educational institutions to implement the program. So, because normally they are not very familiar with who they can partner with. So based on our experience, we give them our recommendations. Then comes the introductions. So we usually host introductory meetings with both institutions to answer questions on the Access model and how they can collaborate as partners. So these meetings are really very important, and because they usually come prepared with lots of questions, and we're very happy to answer them and to guide them. So this is a very nice picture of one of those introductory meetings. This was the day when we met with Amazon Web Services and Universidad Tecnológica de Chile. As you can see, lots of people in the meeting. So it was fun and productive. So next, there is collaboration and agreement. But during this period, both institutions keep working together and agree on all terms without embassy participation. So we leave them on their own, and they agree on all things related to funding, the curriculum, reporting, etc. So we're not part of that step. But there are follow-up conversations, and we do take part on them. So the Embassy English Language team offers technical assistance and shares best practices with the PPPs on different Access model components. In general, they usually have a lot of questions about recruitment, how they can get the families involved. They have questions about the methodology and also the concept and development of enhancement activities, which is something different and new. So here, these are nice pictures of one of those moments when we visited one of our partners and provided assistance on specifically how to develop enhancement activities, what they are, what they can do, etc. So we had a couple of training sessions with them. These teachers are very experienced in teaching English, but they were not very familiar with the other aspects. So embassy presence. So we usually participate, as we said before, in initial conversations, launch events, and graduation ceremonies. And we're always available to answer questions or meet. So this is the evidence of that embassy presence in important events such as inauguration or closing ceremonies. So we always get invited to all of those. Do you have any questions so far about how to create a PPP?
I got a question, Marcela, if I may.
Yes.
If you could just briefly go back to your first slide, I mean, to the slide where you have the list of the 5 programs.
Sure.
I'm interested in knowing like whether all of these programs are in place within English schools. I mean, do these universities, like for example, well, the Fundación Educacional Oportunidad, I mean, do they have an English school or you create a class only?
Fundación Educacional Oportunidad has its own English program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they proposed their English department to be the implementer. Okay? So they have very, I mean, they have a lot of experience in this field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, regarding the 2 other universities, Pontificia Universidad Católica and Tecnológica de Chile, they also have strong English programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Municipalidad de Tucapel, they had to partner with the Binational Center in Concepcion because they provided the funding, but the Binational Center provided the teaching,
mm-hmm.
right? And the same case with the last one, Albemarle. Universidad Católica has a strong English program as well.
Thank you. I got it clear now. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
And Gonzalo, just to also note how, as Marcela mentioned in a later slide, in talking to these organizations, companies, foundations, we propose partners. So for instance, Albemarle, which does the mining in the north, they wanted to do a program in that area. So that's the role of the embassy as the facilitator to identify which school in the north has a great English program and can be a good partner.
Right.
So when you're looking at your own landscape and your own educational and private sector, seeing what could be a good partner. Also with AT&T wanting to partner in that area. So
thank you, Kate. That's what I thought initially. So my second question, I mean, maybe you can answer this today, or
please
maybe
go ahead.
it's it's about the financial part. Like, does it mean that PASS is like paying a tuition to these universities, or
No.
you do it like the access way, as in you pay like teacher salaries and like
No,
you never.
we don't pay anything. As I explained in one of the slides, we provide the funding with a concept paper that describes all the aspects of the Access program, including a budget, like an estimated budget that they should think of.
Okay.
And then the funding institution with the implementer, talk about that. They come to an agreement on the budget, on all the terms.
Okay.
We don't deal with budget issues.
Perfect. Thank you.
But something, and we'll touch upon later at the end, for as far as kind of best practices and things to keep in mind. Sometimes that's the hardest part of how to get the money from the private sector partner to the educational institution. So for example, with Amazon Web Services and this INECAP, this Universidad de Tecnología de Chile, Amazon wanted to just write a check in that meeting that Marcela has a picture of, wanted to just write a check, hand it over that same day. But unfortunately, the university did not have a mechanism by which they could accept donations. So even though all parties agreed on the parameter of the agreement, the number of students, the cost, the hours, the subject matter, finding that funding mechanism took many months, and the legal department of the school had to create a mechanism by which they could accept money for the services. So that's something that we were involved in. But again, that has to be between the two partners. We're just acting as the facilitator.
Yeah, in some cases, the process is much easier. But in this particular case that Kate is describing, their legal department is very demanding, and it needs a lot of information, and it goes back and forth. But that has been kind of the only case. All the other partnerships have been, have had a very smooth process in that respect. But it's good to keep in mind that some organizations are more complex than others. Okay, any other questions about the general process? We talked about the preliminary phase, the contact with the institutions, introductions, collaboration and agreement between the institutions, and then our participation in follow-up conversations, basically on assistance and training if needed. Some other pictures.
Marcela, just one question.
Yes.
When you provide training to these institutions following the access model, do they usually ask you for the reports, the model of reports, the papers that involve the program, or do you have other materials that you share with them, or you show them the access materials?
Yeah, we share samples, templates, like a suggestion, but they are the ones who decide what to do with their programs. But we provide them with examples.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So, all right. So after this overview, we would like to tell you the story of our first PPP with Fundación Educacional Oportunidad. So here we have a brief description of the Fundación. They are part of a private Luxich Foundation group, and their main activity is to work to improve rural public schools and childhood education. And they are currently operating in the Elqui Valley in the north of Chile, in central Chile, and Puerto Natales in the south. Okay. They are very active in the English teaching field here in Chile, and they offer webinars from time to time, and they are really involved. So especially in childhood education and English. So how did it happen? So this has many chapters. The first one was the initial contact. So our former Ambassador Perez, who we miss a lot, met with the president of the Luxich Foundation Group in 2017. And they discussed ways to increase the number of people who speak English in Chile. It was just this conversation that had a lot of impact. And then embassy staff, including me, met with the Luxich Foundation executives, and we discussed about their interest in supporting English learning and how the English access model could help reach this objective. So we had a couple of meetings with them, and after that, we started working level discussions, right? So in August 2017, some months later, the Luxich Foundation proposed their educational foundation, Fundación Ubicacional Oportunidad, as the implementer, because they have a lot of experience in the English teaching field. So the embassy's English language team and the Fundación had a series of meetings to discuss the access model. So we provided orientation, we answered to all their questions. We had a long period of meetings and calls about this. After that, came the selection of the location. So the Fundación was eager to move forward with the PPP because they saw an opportunity here because the Access program aligns with their work supporting English in primary schools in rural and semi-rural areas. It was like the perfect continuity for all the work they already do in primary education. So they selected finally the Elqui Valley based upon their long experience with schools there, and of course our shared goal to increase job opportunities there in the region. So the Elqui Valley was selected among all the regions where they operate. So then they started working with the local partners at the Elqui Valley. So the Fundación director and the English team met with the municipal officials and school principals to explain everything about the program and of course to request their support. So as a result, two schools from Vicuña and Paihuano, one of important places there, agreed then to host the program and to collaborate on recruiting the students. And then the Fundación teachers took part in the recruitment process, which was as any traditional access model proposes. And then I just participated in the interviews with students and the families. So they followed our guidelines about this important part of the process. And then in preparation for the launch of the program, so the Fundación went ahead and completed the recruitment process, held an orientation session with the students and their families, met with the teachers, of course, several times to plan both the English instruction curriculum and the Access-like enhancement activities program. And also the Fundación invited their partner organization, which is Beyond English, because they have collaborated with them for several years in their own projects, but they invited them to this one too, because Beyond English provides volunteers, English-speaking volunteers who work in conjunction with the teachers, and they support English learning and the development of community service activities. So it was an important partner for them. After this comes our participation. So Ambassador Perez attended the launch of the program for 40 students. This was in May 2018. So almost a year after everything started. After that initial conversation she had. She also met with local municipal directives, Fundación executives and teachers, and the 2 school principals, and she congratulated them on their partnership to start an Access-like program. And throughout the program, we provided teacher training and materials and included the students and teachers in embassy cultural programs. So we offer that to the partners. So whenever we have a cultural program that we think might be useful, we invite these partners to participate and take the students. So in December 2019, embassy reps participated in closing ceremony and met with Fundación officials to discuss funding another iteration of the program. So that was very interesting to know that they are interested in doing more with this program. So here there are some nice pictures of the events, launch, closing ceremony, and a cultural program in La Serena near the Elqui Valley. There was a concert and the students and the teachers were invited. And they were really grateful because many of the students had never been to a concert before. So it was very enriching. I just wanted to add some fun facts about the Elqui Valley, just for your information, for fun. So the Elqui Valley, as you may know, is the most important astronomical center globally, known as the first international dark sky sanctuary. It has some of the world's leading scientific observatories, such as ALMA, Tololo, and Paranal. Its other main economic activity is Chilean pisco production, not to compete with Peru, but it's very good. And it receives thousands of visitors every year. So as you can imagine, speaking English in this region is highly valued and becomes an essential tool for economic growth. So here is a map for you to get an idea of where it is. This is our long and narrow country, and the Elqui Valley is right here. And it's a 7-hour drive from Santiago. Kate has been there several times, so she can later tell you good stories about it. So any questions about this case study story? How it started?
Marce, one question. It's not related to the story, but I was wondering about the audience. Is it like same ages as Access, or each partnership selects the audience?
It is the same except for one of the partnerships, which is Universidad Tecnológica de Chile. They are older students, first year at university, because Amazon was looking for a specific profile. So we suggested this university to them. But all the rest of the programs have worked with ages between 15, 17, or actually 14, 17, yeah, approximately.
But in general, Marcela to speak about audience, yeah, the private sector partner is the one that can choose their preferred audience because it isn't an Access program. It's a similar program, so they are not married to the specific rules and regulations. So as Marcela mentioned, with the NACAP program, Amazon Web Services was struggling to find people to work at their facilities and their data mining centers because they didn't have the level of English needed. And so one of the reasons they wanted to work with this vocational technical school is because they wanted to build up a future workforce in addition to doing corporate social responsibility. So they selected this VOTEC school because that was their audience for future potential workers, and also because that is an area that they wanted to develop.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and yeah, that's absolutely correct. Any other questions? If not, we can move on and, well, talk about what happens after the first PPP. So our Ambassador Perez continued her meetings with high-level executives from other American companies doing business in Chile, and she continued promoting partnerships to support English learning. So after her conversations and meetings, we kept having meetings with the interested companies, and the process started all over again as with our first PPP. So that's how we ended up with five partnerships. As you can imagine, we had a lot of meetings and follow-up conversations, etc. So it's been really interesting and productive. But there's always some things to keep in mind. Some of them are like best practices. It's good to remember that, for example, partners cannot use the Access branding for their programs. So none of the programs have the Access name. They have different names, as, for example, English Challenges, Pathways, etc. We Learn, but they cannot be called Access because then it's a different story. The embassy supports the implementing partners by sharing Access program best practices, right? So that's always something we do. Training for the teachers by the embassy is welcome, but not obligatory. Not all of them request training, but if they do, we're happy to give it to them. The embassy doesn't get involved in agreement negotiations between the partners, as we were explaining before. They come to agreements on their own. And then the embassy doesn't require reports from the implementing partners. That's nice too. We don't need more reports. And the embassy representatives are encouraged to attend ceremonies and visit the classes if asked, right? We are usually asked, so we go. It is good for them and it's good for us too. So these are more or less the things we consider important to remember. Do you have any questions about any of these things, aspects to consider? Okay.
I got a question, comment that
Please.
it could be for you or Kate or even Denise, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like in Bolivia, our alumni programs are like very strong, you know? And the Access, like CHOP, and like any other English programs, like feed, you know, like the whole alumni community, like enormously. Would there be like a chance for a program like this, an Access-like program, to ever be considered Access? As in, I mean, this happened in Bolivia once when it all started. You know, we had an Access starting as an Access, but we had another post-initiated program starting, you know, with past funding. It was called Bright Future, but like we managed to get it recognized as an Access because it actually had like every single aspect of an access program. And I learned several times in the past that like money doesn't necessarily come from ECA to be considered an access program. So
That's a good question.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm happy to answer that. As far as considering these access, they would have to, and this is my particular rule, they would have to go through FHI 360, the whole reporting, abide by all the access rules. They wouldn't have any flexibility for changing any of those in order to be considered access. And that was one thing that, you know, I talked about with Kate and Marcella. And, you know, there is a possibility of having, you know, outside funding for access, but it's a complicated process. I've done it before when I was RELO in Amman, and it is a very complicated process. And it's, to be quite frank, it's not cost effective. Because right here, you've got these programs that are $17,000, $25,000, and part of that's going to have to go to FHI 360 for their portion if you have that instead. And I think that their NICA is like 30–40%. So basically, you're talking about half of the funding going to FHI 360 or almost that much. And again, you're having to stay within the box of the access program. In addition, because now we have our risk and strategy assessment forms, your limitations as far as what percentage of, say, Kate and Marcella's portfolio as English language programs at Access are still going to be that. If they were Access, those would count toward that, and it would, for example, perhaps mean that you would have fewer other access ECA funded access programs, or have to hire another LES, or have another American officer involved in the process if you begin having, you know, multiple programs like this. Because part of the process of being approved for access now is that we have somebody who has enough time or enough, a great enough portion of their portfolio dedicated to oversight of access programs. So does that answer your question, Gonzalo?
Fully.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so it's definitely not worth that.
Yeah.
But it is, but yeah.
Some of these are possible, but again, it would end up being, even if you're just thinking about the funding, it would end up being not cost effective. And again, they would be in the box of, you know, of the whole access program. Whereas this way, they can take the aspects of access that they like or that fit this particular program and then make something totally new, you know?
Sure.
So.
Thank you, Denise. And my second question, I guess this is for Marcela and Kate. I was kind of like puzzled when you talked about like that the embassy does not require reports from the implementing partners. I mean, this could vary definitely from country to country, but like in Bolivia, for instance, is like even if we're working with a BNC that's like 70 years old, has always offered, you know, like top quality instruction and the rest, it seems that reporting is essential, you know. So we've had public partnerships too, you know, like, but like us being like in the middle and like requesting reporting seems to be something that's a must, you know, like in Bolivia. So I'm impressed to hear that that's not necessary in Chile for this specific kind of programs. And this is basically because like if in Bolivia, if the embassy is like in the middle of something, we want to assure like top quality, you know. And it seems that institutions, again, this could be just culturally, it seems that institutions, when having the freedom to act, you know, like more freely, they sort of like tend to relax as well, you know, which comes against the quality of the instruction that we want. That was just mainly a comment more than a question.
Yeah, you're right that we don't request reports, and the reports that they issue are directly to the funding company. And I mean, we make sure the implementers, the institutions that provide the the teaching are the best. I mean, top quality. So we trust that they do a good job. But yeah, we don't require reports, and it's just I understand that in Bolivia things can be different.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
we're not forced to get reports from them.
Right. And Gonzalo, because we are just the facilitators, these are not our programs. Like, as you mentioned, with a grant, we would of course have reporting. With the Access program, of course, we have reporting.
Yeah.
But we're the facilitators connecting the private sector partner and an educational institution. So in those initial discussions, we absolutely share the best practices. We recommend a quarterly report or a whatever report they think is necessary. But absolutely, we advise them on that. But then we take a step back because these are not access programs, that these are then the public-private partnerships following the access model. So then it's up to the institutions.
Thank you.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So some of these some of the providers might actually write quarterly reports, but they submit them to Amazon, or they submit them to whoever is the funding agency. And then
Exactly.
part of the beginning agreement where the funding agency says, we will disperse, funds to you every quarter or every semester or something.
Exactly, based upon their own agreed upon agreement.
Yes.
Interesting. It's kind of mind-blowing to me. I mean, I just started this job and I'm just learning about the Access program, but it seems it kind of like Denise was kind of pointing out some of the drawbacks to Access, but this seems like it might be a good fit for especially for schools that have slightly different needs or who don't fit in that box, with all of the different regulations that are attached to Access programs.
Absolutely. And as we touched upon before about selecting the audience, for instance, our AT&T partner, in addition to English, they also inputted a component on
cloud computing.
Yeah, cloud computing with Amazon Web Services, but they also had basic computer skills that they were teaching. So that's not normally a component that would be in Access, but AT&T also, the way their funding stream worked, they could only do 10 months at a time. So again, that gave us the flexibility, or gave them the flexibility of doing just a 10-month program, still effective. They also did want to re-up for another year, but then unfortunately due to COVID and the social unrest that was in Chile, the university they were partnering with closed, so that's been on hold, but everything was in the process to renew another year. So making it a 2-year program with the leniency of getting to do it in the 10-month chunks, having the basic computing skills in addition to English.
Yes. Okay, so we are coming to the end, and it's time to talk about positive outcomes and impact. So of course, by doing these PPPs, we have helped to expand English learning in Chile. So that makes us very happy. There will be higher employability and more qualified workforce for sure. There's also positive press coverage and public opinion for embassy and private sector partners. And also students will have opportunities to apply for study or exchange scholarships. Students that never thought of that will have that opportunity. And then we have this PPP model that can be replicated in the region if any other posts would like to. So this is like a summary of all the impact that we can think of. So please feel free to ask any questions you may have. comments? You have more, or Kate, would you like to
Yes.
add?
Yeah, I do just want to add one thing that we touched upon in the case study is how important our former Ambassador Perez, she was very instrumental in making some of the initial contacts. And we think that that's something that is important in if other posts tried to replicate this. She was very active and a big supporter of English. So in all of her regular ambassadorial duties of meeting with private sector partners on commercial trade issues, she would always bring up English, always bring up the corporate social responsibility. She was always talking about it. So that was great for us because it gave us the inroads that maybe the English section here in PASS wouldn't have had those connections. So having leadership or front office who is going to pitch this in every meeting or many meetings was very helpful. And that got us a lot of other meetings that Marcel and I had been working on again before COVID, but it was beginning to be more and more well-known. But so you can also work with your FCS colleagues, your econ colleagues, commercial sector, tell them about this possibility. So that way, when they're meeting with the US companies that are in your country, they can pitch that as a good idea for corporate social responsibility, an easy way to support English and build workforce development in the community that they're operating in. We found that a lot of US companies wanted people around them, their employees' families to speak English, but they didn't have the connections in the community to make that corporate social responsibility. So alerting your colleagues about this possibility and how relatively easy it is as far as a lift on the embassy, since it is just facilitating, we think that's a good best practice.
Yeah, just wanted to add too that some of these conversations that the ambassador had were at science fairs or business fairs. So it was very interesting how it developed into a PPP after that. And one of the, only one of the partners that we listed at the beginning was not, I mean, they came to us instead of being contacted by the ambassador. So that was interesting too, because this municipality had funding, to support English in the region, and they didn't know how to, so they came to us for advice. So that was nice to be able to tell them about the Access program and how they could partner with the BNC, the Binational Center near where they were located. So that's how it started. And now those students will have very interesting opportunities in the future.
And I guess you see, like, in the future, like, this is going to grow. I mean, do you think you'll have more partners in the future? Like, this is something that's going to continue to expand, or do you think it'll, because it sounds like the ambassador was pretty instrumental in getting this started.
Yeah, some of the partners want to continue funding programs. So hopefully it will grow. Actually, Albemarle and Fundación Educacional Oportunidad, they want to continue with this. So yeah, it's growing.
And as I mentioned, we had other meetings with other private sector partners as these programs were finishing at the end of the Chilean school year, which is December of last year. But unfortunately, that was also the time of the social unrest, the closure of a lot of universities, and universities that never reopened because COVID came to Chile in March. So we do think that this is something that will continue. There might be an unexpected pause right now, but we were well on the way of expanding partnerships with the former partners and new partners.
Yeah.
And again, the nice thing about this is the fact that if it were access, you would be limited and the number of partners you could have. And simply because of, like you said, the heavy load, the heavy workload that goes along with access. In this way, because you're involved in only certain parts of it, you're not having to read reports. You're present, but you're not having to always be present. You can have multiple partnerships like this and have the embassy sort of stamp of approval on it and go a long way as far as public diplomacy without having all the labor that goes into just one access program, much less 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however many that you want to do. So you're able to extend your reach a bit further.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like the embassy role here is really just like a connector. Like you connect the school and the private organization and kind of show them a model and then let it go.
Exactly. We're the facilitators using the access model. Yep.
And I think the fact that, that they ask you all to be present at their opening, closing ceremonies, things like that, that still gives, the visibility to the embassy, to the students and, to those with the providers. And again, you could also, I remember on one of the slides, you said that, you can provide teacher training for the teachers as well, which is another inroad, I think, as far as embassy involvement.
Absolutely. And a lot of the partners want the embassy, even though we are just the facilitators, they always want the embassy to be there at the announcements, to have the embassy be involved because it lends them more credibility or maybe a little bit
prestige.
Right, exactly. And could bring the press when we have press conferences related to like a launch. So it's something that we can easily do.
And do you do like at the original, like when the private and public organization developed their agreement, do you like look over it to make sure it's meets some sort of standard, or just kind of to the point of you don't want to put the embassy stamp of approval on everything? So is there some sort of like oversight, or I don't know the word to use?
Yeah, I mean, they share it with us. We describe to them the access model, the 360 hours, the enhancement. For instance, the Amazon Web Services NACAP program followed very, very closely the access model. And as Dace can tell you, thankfully that's shareable. It's not copyrighted as far as the content. I know Marcelo worked closely with our POC, our former POC there, because they actually did even run an access program in a different location. So he was familiar with it, and that's how that got incorporated into the agreements. So, and we can give and provide feedback, but because it's not an access program, they don't need to hit those benchmarks.
Well, we are at 3 p.m. Does there anybody, I'm not sure, I think you are we at the end of the presentation? I don't want to cut you off either. I'm not sure.
I mean, if there are no more questions, we can come to an end. And these are nice pictures of PPP students. So thank you very much for your questions and for your time and interest. We are happy to share the concept paper with you if you're interested. So that's it. That's it for now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being willing to share. And again, so many of you are doing some incredible things around the region. And one of the silver linings of this particular, of the crisis, I mean, there's nothing good about it, but it's the fact that we sort of came up with this idea to connect. And I think that it's been, good in that we've been able to learn from each other. And we hope to continue offering these. We need volunteers from the field to share your ideas. If not, we will volunteer you. Exactly. I don't want to say voluntold, because obviously
Voluntold. Yeah.
you can still say we're not going to do it, obviously. But we do nudge. We will nudge people that we know have some good projects, like Kate and Marcella. We nudged them a little bit because we really wanted you guys to be able to share this, because it's such a a good answer to your situation there. So
Sorry it's so long.
yeah, no, I think it's the perfect time, and we had the first part of October, last part of September, we were busy with the virtual conference and end of fiscal year, I know for a lot of you. So I think this is the perfect time. And if you have anything you want to share, anybody else, you have anything you want to share, any ideas, if you know things that other posts are sharing, you can draft them, let us know. And if not, I do think that at this point, because we've gone, I know that there are still some things out there, but we may also start inviting some experts in and having these chats with them. So if you have contact at Post, doing something very interesting with English language programs, let's chat about that being a possibility of having some guests come on and talk about interesting revolutionary ways of carrying out English language education. So with that, I think we'll sign off for now, and we hope to see you all real soon. So stay safe.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.